More Than a Horse today, catching up with Save Some Time to Dream and Holly Hildebrandt. Firstly, welcome.
Thank you, Paul.
More Than a Horse is brought to you by Woodland Stud New Zealand. It's a harness racing stud in New Zealand, and Barrastock, who both support Campbell's comments. Barrastock had me at the recent Barrastock horse trials, and Holly, I caught up with you there and Save Some Time to Dream. He had a ripping show and a ripping weekend, but it was probably the response I got on social media afterwards that I thought, I'm going to start highlighting some of these off-the-track standardbreds. It was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Buck and I had a fantastic show at Barrastock Horse of the Year. He went out there and he got first in his lead, champion lead, supreme lead, and then he got his first in his ridden, champion ridden and supreme ridden. So he had a fantastic show, and it just goes to show that once the standardbreds get out there and, like you said, got interviewed at Barrastock and get promoting, the amount of views that you had was unbelievable, because people want to get into the standardbreds and know them more. They
are dead set more than a horse. I think this is the one thing that I try to capture, that when they're on a racetrack, people just think they're an object for people to punt on and the likes, and they're not. And I've done an interview with Paul Rouse, and I'll throw that in a minute, but one of the things Paul said to me was that his mother waits for every social media post about Save Some Time to Dream and that following part with him, and that's key. That's exactly what they are. It's a horse that's left Paulie's place for a little while, but his mum holds her breath to watch and catch up with him.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that, so that's really good to hear, and that's unbelievable. Yeah, Buck, he's got his own Facebook page, so Save Some Time to Dream, obviously, he's got his own Facebook page, so usually after every event, or I keep people up to date with his progress and what events we have coming up, or just little bits and pieces every now and again we'll pop on there. And I think he's got over nearly 300 followers now on Facebook, so there is a lot of people that do follow Buck, and they always wait to see what he's up to, so yeah, it's good.
I'm going to actually throw to our interview with Paul, and he'll actually explain his racing career and the sort of horse he was, and actually what he meant to him and his family, and we'll come back, discuss where he's at, what he's up to, and what he means to you.
Sounds good.
Right, More Than a Horse, catching up with Paul Rouse, the CEO of the Ballarat and District Trotting Club, BTTC, which is over there on the sign, which is a pretty important job. You're fairly entrenched in the harness racing industry, Paul, and it's a full-on job that you've got over here.
I have, Paul, coming up to 25 years next year with the club. So I've virtually worked in every role throughout the organisation, so just a great club to work for.
Part of the More Than a Horse is raising awareness for some of these horses that are part of history and are part of harness racing and the like. Save Some Time to Dream is a horse we're going to talk about. And the reason I wanted to say about your position, because you have a very prestigious position. You're probably the #1 country club in Victoria. Probably raise a few eyebrows that I've said that, but that's okay. I think you've got the mantle, and rightfully so. But a horse like Buck means a lot to you, and what I did this off was a day at Werribee when Holly was riding him, but he actually means a lot to you and a lot to your family, doesn't he?
He does. Background with the horses, also being able to train horses again is a bit of a privilege when you work for a 24-hour just about day as a secretary or club manager does these days. You're forever on the phone, or you're out doing something that the horses quite often give you a bit of a stress relief, and I treat our home horses that way, and but I've been lucky enough over the years to have a couple of good ones that probably opened up some doors that through other industry sort of people that just being an administrator wouldn't. So having a horse is always a good introduction.
What sort of horse was Buck, or Save Some Time to Dream? Because I actually scrolled through his form backwards, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, so he won the Yarra Cup, Ararat Cup from memory. There was one other cup, the Gunbower Cup, as well, and performed at quite a good level all the way through. But then you get back to the start, and he won 6 of his first 7. So he must have really rocketed onto the scene as a 3-year-old.
He certainly did, and we'd never been traditionally keen on racing him as 2-year-olds. We bred the horse, broke him in myself, and then he won, I think, his first 2 here at Ballarat. Didn't really know until first three, and didn't really know he won a Vic bred heat. Then he went into the semi-final, and at the time I think Jodie was either driving another horse or she suspended. Greg Sugars jumped on, and he beat a pretty handy field, and I think he ended up starting equal favourite in the 3-year-old final, the Vic bred, but by then we were starting to see he had a few wear and tear issues, and he was subsequently operated on, and we never really saw the true buck that I thought was there. He showed some glimpses as a 3-year-old, come back and won a Breeders' Crown heat pretty impressively, and at the time Hutchie was comparing him to Sushi. Sushi was sort of the it horse at the time, but he always struggled. He had some bone chips removed as a 3-year-old, but he got to a pretty good level considering all those things that he had to battle on with.
He won $222,000 in stakes, 20 races. I think it was, from memory, it's about 12 and 11 seconds and thirds.
Yep.
How many race starts did he have? Because that's the only one that's not in my head.
Oh, listen, we like to pull him up a bit before the 100, and to be honest, the Standardbred's a robust sort of horse. They can go well in advance of 100 starts, but when you sort of get down to free-for-all level, it's really hard to be competitive week in, week out. We just sort of thought with the new crop of horses coming through, pretty sure we retired him as a 9-year-old. And again, he was well managed throughout his life. He was very lucky to have a connection with Foresight, the people that make that great joint product, and he was always a horse you had to manage. And as I said, I still think we probably didn't see the best of him, but what he was able to put together was enough to to satisfy anybody to have a horse that can go to Country Cup level.
The Foresight is actually still on too. We will definitely look after Foresight because sponsors are part of horses, full stop. He then went into a program. You actually changed the program. I can't remember the name of it, but he had a bit of a different change of life.
So again, with the connections you get through the club, Harness Racing Australia, Kath
Mullen.
Kath Mullen, I always go to call her McMullen like the Queensland one. Kath, sorry about that. She approached me, and Tanya McDermott come out and had a look at a couple of horses at the property, and I sort of did a bit of wheeling and dealing, and I basically said to the girls, well, if you consider one of the horses, I'll try to get you a bit of a start-up sponsorship with some of the people that I know, and our own club saw merit in that. So I remember going to the committee meeting and suggesting that the club put in and become one of the sponsors for Hard to Say. There is no finish line, and I thought we got some really good mileage out of that, and we're lucky enough a bit later on in the year to do some more work for Hero. So again, it's those connections you make throughout the club, and I'm always keen to keep any sort of connection I can going, and it was very rewarding to see what the horse is able to do throughout the program.
And we're going to get to Holly in one sec, but some of the highlights: leading the Ballarat Cup out, being under saddle. I mean, that must have been a huge thrill for probably a couple of reasons. One, you backed yourself to say, how about we get behind this course?
Yep.
So then he comes back here. But then also a horse that you've had nurtured for such a long time, to see him in a different role, promoting the sport in such a different role.
Yeah, listen, I think some ways he's probably fulfilled that potential in another sport by doing the showing, and I'm grateful for Kat for seeing the potential in him. Then Holly obviously going on with that potential, and probably the biggest thrill for our family when we went down to Equitana and we saw Buck as part of the Hero and There Is No Finish Line presentation down there, and we watched Kat do a bit of a teaching session down there, and we were very proud. My two girls we're still talking many months after, and even my mum, who follows his career still on Facebook, we get a huge thrill when we see him do well in any of the country shows. And
that's about how this all came about. I did a lot for Werribee. I interviewed Holly there, and she was terrific. She mentioned all the sponsors, and she makes sure she does speak so well. But I know you got a kick out of it purely for your likes and all the rest. But just the positive, I suppose, generated from that one interview that I had with Holly, and how well she spoke, but how well the horse looked and how well he presented. He's just this great ambassador for harness racing from a few points. One, he wins a lot of shows, so that part's a positive, but it's also just the way that he presents himself. Holly does, and then the whole backstory that's part of it, back to you, starting off here, and as I said, you're the CEO here. So harness racing is this great sport, isn't it?
It certainly is, and the network of people you build up and you follow, and I've now started sort of following a lot of the local girls that do the shows now, and we've got a couple of really good people here in Ballarat that look after their horses. They take great pride in showing the horses throughout Victoria, and I enjoy seeing their rewards gained on Facebook and social media as well. But Buck was just, we look at him now and he looks like a movie star to us, and whilst we always like the fact that whenever we put a horse on the track, he always looks, he or she looks, like a good horse, and we pride ourselves on that. Just the level that Kat and then Holly have taken this horse to is just amazing.
They are more than a horse, aren't they? I mean, that's what I'm trying to do. Is I think you said your mum looks forward to any posts about him on Facebook. Yep. So, and I think people have got to realise what we do have is something a lot more than just a horse. They're everyone's mate.
Oh, and listen, as a club, we're looking forward to helping Hero a bit later on in the year by having there's something to be announced a bit later on where we'll showcase the Hero horses, and it was an easy one for them to come to me, and knowing the background, and I think it's a fantastic program, and the standard bred. I was quite shocked in doing a bit of research last week to see the versatility of the horse, and hopefully we can showcase that later on in the year here at Ballarat.
Absolutely, that's what I'm going to try and do with these. I've got a few horses lined up. They all do different disciplines, but Paul Rouse, thank you very much, and congratulations with Buck and his story, and hopefully you keep following it, mate.
Thanks, Paul.
Right, so we are back. It's great to see. I must say, the day I was with Paul, it was a little bit colder. We didn't go outside because it was a bit cold in Ballarat, and I'm sure that's one of the things Buck appreciates here, because it's a beautiful May day. He means a lot to Paul and the family, and he's had a great path with the way he was chosen to go through. There's no finishing line, or there's no way there. Samantha Mullen and the great crew done a great job with him. You must have been rapt when you were able to sort of secure him, I suppose, as to be your show horse.
Yeah, definitely. So we seen Buck out and about at the shows with Kathleen Mullen, which did There Is No Finish Line with Buck, and I seen him out at Vasa in Bendigo quite a few years ago when Kat had him, and I thought, oh gee, that's a nice standardbred, I'd like to have him one day. And then it came up that you had to put an application in to get Buck to continue his showing career from track to hack, and I was the lucky one to get it, and I wasn't expecting to get it, so I was very humbled to receive that phone call and say, Holly, you're the lucky athlete that's now going to be taking over Buck's career under saddle. So that was fantastic, and from when I got Buck, I think I've had him now for coming up 3 years, and from starting to now, it's just the partnership that we've had together, it's just growing more and more every ride that we have, and he's definitely part of the family here as well, and we always keep Rousey up to date with how he's going, and they see on social media, and it'd be nice, hopefully this year we can get to Ballarat show and his family can come over and see him and over there, because last year we obviously couldn't go because of COVID, so it'd be great to get to Ballarat this year.
Well, you're a little bit overawed by what you've taken on. You saw him as a horse, and you are a shower, you love showing, and you've just come back from Sydney. Well, you're a bit overawed at, you've got this standardbred, and then all of a sudden there is a little bit more pressure than probably the normal pony to perform at shows. Yeah, definitely. I know the first time I took Buck out to a show, I was nervous because all eyes was on Buck and I thought, pressure's on, we've got to do well, because Kat was doing so well with him, so the bar was set pretty high. So I know we didn't go out for a fair while. I probably was home practicing and having riding lessons for a fair while, probably nearly six months before we actually went out to a show, because I wanted us to be Mickey Mouse before we went out, and I knew that the pressure was on and everyone watched. But our first show out, I can't even remember where our first show was with him though, but it was, I think we went out and he went really well, and he didn't disappoint, and we had a fantastic day. Do you enjoy the pressure part of it? Do you enjoy the fact that you've got a horse that is got a tattoo on his neck, and is raising the standards of harness racing and raising awareness of harness racing, and people look at you when you go past? Do you enjoy that part? Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's great. When I first started, I was always a bit nervous and everyone's looking at us, be a good boy, Buck. But now I think I've got used to that, and everyone knows who Buck is, even if it's someone from the standardbred ring or the open show ring. Everyone knows him, and he goes out there, and we both like being out in the ring competing together, and
everyone knows us both, and we put him in the show hunter ring as well, and they all know he's a standardbred, but they don't put that against him, which is good, because years ago I guess you had judges that would take that into consideration and put them down, but now it doesn't matter if they've got a brand on their neck, they just take it as a normal horse against a thoroughbred, and Buck's definitely held his own in the show ring.
Tattoos are the fashion. It's just an easy way to market them, because I mean people like tattoos. I think I've asked you this before, and we're not going to, because Mum's there, so you may have one and you don't want to tell Mum, so we won't even ask that. We won't ask that question. Does Buck enjoy it?
He does. Buck absolutely loves being a riding horse, show horse now. I can imagine, I didn't really see him much when he was a racehorse because I would have been quite young, but I do remember him at the races, and I know he was a tough racehorse, but now in the show ring he knows that he's good at that, and he gets out in the ring and he's got that presence about him, and his work ethic at home isn't the best. He'll just do as much as he has to, but that doesn't worry me, because I know when I get out into the show ring that day, he perks up and he knows he's out there to do a job, and he never disappoints.
I alluded before that you do a lot of the showing. You've got quite a few different horses. The harness ring, the standardbred ring, you enjoy that ring and try to grow it. Like, what I saw at Barrastock that day, it was a good ring. There was quite a few people there, but it probably needs more people, and we need to be able to grow it even bigger. Do you enjoy it?
Definitely. Yep. I do enjoy that. This is the first standardbred I've sort of had out in the standardbred ring. My sister Jessica, she's had a standardbred Cairns Presence, and she showed him under the standardbred ring, and I rode him a few times, but Buck's the first one that I've sort of had a lot to do with the standardbred ring, so SPPHAV Association, and it's great that nowadays there's more people getting standardbreds and getting them out and about in the ring, and they might be trail riding, dressage, jumping, whatever discipline they're doing. It's fantastic to see, because they're getting another life after racing, and they're a good temperament with them. They're easy to do anything with, but it would be great if we could get a few more standardbred shows out and about at your big royal shows. For instance, Melbourne Royal's coming up, and there's only some harness classes there. There's no led or ridden classes, which is a shame, because it would be great to get standardbreds led, ridden and even harness at a lot of the royals and more agricultural shows, because there's so many people nowadays that do have a standardbred that want to get out and compete. Maybe
the powers that be will be listening to this, and they might be able to be aware of it off season right at the minute, which is a pity, because it's a Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, and it's a day like this. It'd be sensational to be showing on a day like today. Plans though for next year? Do you have to map out a plan? Like like I'm a traditional standardbred person myself. I don't do showing that well. You've got a plan for him? Yep.
So we've got a bit of a plan. So at the moment is our quiet time. So Buck's having a little bit of a rest, but not too much of a rest, because you'll get too fat.
He doesn't mind food. He's a little bit like Rousey a bit, isn't he?
He definitely loves his tucker. He does not leave a skerrick in the bin. He licks it out. But yeah, Buck will come back into work very shortly. He's only getting work lightly at the moment, but he'll come back into work soon. He's going to go down to Equitana in July and represent the breed in the Breeds Village, and we'll possibly do a lead event at Equitana. So if you're coming to Equitana, come and meet Buck in the Breed Village and say hello. After Equitana, he'll have a few agricultural shows that will start up in about August. And then we'll go from there with agricultural shows and try and get to a few other royal shows and go from there.
And keep getting him out there, keep spreading the word. One, for the standardbreds, but also for the shows. And also, I think one thing with the standardbreds a lot of people aren't aware of is that they are actually quite affordable to buy, and there is a lot of support, like the Hero program, HR Harness Racing Victoria. There are lots of support paths out there that can actually help you with him and guide you along. So if you're looking for a horse and you're looking for something different, they're a beautiful horse. I mean, I've been around them all my life, and they're not foolproof. I mean, you had a little bit of an issue there when you're taking his neck rug off. He says, "I'm out of here." They're definitely not foolproof, but they are a lovely horse, aren't they?
They are. Every horse, every standardbred we've had. Dad's got harness racing horses as well. Standardbreds, we've had standardbreds all of our life. They do have a good temperament, but I guess like any horse, they've all got their quirks about them. There's no doubt about that. Every horse is different. You'll never get one that's exactly the same, and they always try and test you with different things, but yeah, you got to have that, because otherwise I guess you get bored with the same thing every day. So
You do indeed.
it's good.
Always got to thank my sponsors, Barrastock and Woodlands, who bring this. And as I said, Barrastock had me at the Barrastock Horse Trials. And you have your Barrastock shirts on, but you actually have a vest over the top. And I will say you're entitled to have the vest over the top. But Inner Path and the joint supplement, Paul Rouse actually mentioned about how he's been on it for such a long time.
Yeah.
And it's an essential part of his well-being, isn't it?
Definitely, yeah. Buck's been on the Foresight Epitalis, his racing career, and now under saddle, and it's definitely part of his diet every single day. He gets his 4 meal once a day, and we're very lucky that Buck's sponsored by them. So we get that sponsored and delivered to us, so we can't thank Foresight enough for doing that for Buck and I, and Buck absolutely loves it, and it smells delicious. It smells like apple, and he always sees it coming and he just absolutely loves it.
It's a product we use at home, and I must say you don't have any issue giving it to any horse.
No, they love it.
Holly, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It has taken us a little while because there was a couple of false alarms and everything else like that, but I do appreciate it. It is the off season. I look forward. I'm hopefully going to be at Equitana in some capacity, so we might have to do another interview there with you, and probably some of these shows going around. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Paul.